action plan is a maintenance option that allows employers who have held a valid COR for 4 or more consecutive years to use as an alternative process for meeting the maintenance audit requirement. Rather than conduct an annual maintenance audit, some employers may find it more valuable to focus their resources on enacting action plan items from their last audit or working on corporate health and safety projects. Action plans create an opportunity for the company to focus on implementing suggestions for improvement from their previous audits and measure their own success. Training outcomes within this presentation include understand eligibility, developing the action plan deliverables, and final submission. Topics we will be covering include eligibility, timelines, action plan development, action plan elements, action plan submission, and quality assurance. Eligibility. In order to qualify for the action plan option for your maintenance year, you must meet the following criteria. A minimum of 1 full COR cycle has taken place. The most recent recertification audit achieved an overall score of 80% or higher. The employer has 11 or more employees. The employer has not received any orders from Alberta Occupational Health and Safety within the current COR cycle, and a certified auditor is on staff. Large and complex employers with multiple sites, multiple accounts, and/or related employers who originally were included together in the same certification audit must submit 1 action plan. Multiple action plans may not be submitted. The Appendix H1 Group Audit Application must be submitted with the action plan application. It is also important to note that all action plans must score a minimum of 60% or higher in order to maintain the current COR certification. Timelines. In order to qualify and proceed with your action plan, you must first submit your action plan proposal to the AMTA for us to verify your eligibility. Action plan proposals are to be submitted to audits@amta.ca for verification of eligibility. Action plan proposal submission. This is the submission of your developed action plan. Typically, proposals must be submitted to the AMTA no later than March 31st. However, with the current COVID-19 pandemic, Partnerships has granted an extension on these submissions. Action plan proposals for 2020 must be submitted to the AMTA by June 30th. This date will be reverting back to March 31st, moving into 2021. Amendments can be made to your proposed action plan. Amendment requests must be submitted to the AMTA COR Department in writing. All amendment requests must be submitted no later than October 31st. Final plan submission. This is the submission of your implemented action plan. Typically, final submissions are required by November 30th. However, with the current COVID-19 pandemic, Partnerships has granted an extension on final plan submissions. All final plans must be submitted to the AMTA no later than December 31st. This date will be reverting back to November 30th in 2021. Elements of the action plan. List the title of the action plan objective. A short description may also be included. Objectives should be organizational-wide and not department-specific. Check off if this objective is based on the previous recommendation. For example, we have identified our first objective as qualifications, orientations, and training. This is the box that you will check if this objective is relevant to your last external recertification audit. Next, you're going to list the milestones or significant activities to complete the project. For example, for our first objective, we have identified milestones as identify health and safety needs for managers and supervisors, develop course outline, develop course content and materials, and deliver training to 80% of managers and supervisors. Next, you want to name the individual or group who is responsible for the completion of the deliverable for each milestone or significant activity. In our example, we have identified B. Nicholson as being responsible for our first milestone. Next, you want to enter the target date as a projected completion date that is indicated for each activity listed within your action plan. The target date we have given for our first milestone is July 15th of 2020. Once you have completed the milestone within your objective, you are going to enter the date completed as part of your action plan final submission. Deliverables. Submitted to the AMTA as evidence of completion, the employer indicates the deliverables that will be submitted to the AMTA for each item to demonstrate completion. All deliverables must be submitted to the AMTA no later than December 31st. As you can see here, one of our deliverables is a need assessment document. We will then be attaching this document with our completed action plan submission. Potential score. The employer assigns a point value corresponding to the relative importance of each of the objectives within the action plan. The total points are 100 for the entire action plan for the year. Within each objective, the points are further allocated to each milestone or significant activity. The assignment of points will be discussed and agreed upon with the AMTA prior to the action plan being approved. Evaluation of successful completion of the action plan and the subsequent awarding of points for each of the objectives listed will be based on the submission of deliverables to the AMTA. Factors to consider in assigning points include the impact the objective will have on making the health and safety management system effective, the amount of work involved in the objective, and the comprehensive nature of the objective. Companies assign a score based on the completion of the milestone. When assigning a score, review if the milestone was completed in full. If the assigned milestone was completed in full, you will award full points. If the milestone was not completed at all, you cannot award any points. However, if it was partially completed, for example, your milestone stated 4 drills would be conducted, but only 2 were conducted, you are able to award partial points for that milestone. Total points for the overall action plan is 100. Total of all milestone point potentials must be equal to 100. Milestone scores are totaled at the end of each objective. Objective scores are totaled at the conclusion of the action plan. For example, if 5 objectives are identified, each worth 20 possible points, and scoring of all 5 objectives reflects 75 points awarded, then the total score for the action plan is 75%, or 75 out of 100 possible points. The score is the maximum score that will be assigned by the reviewer, completed prior to submission, This is based on potential score provided in the original application. Each score is based on % of objective or milestone achieved. This is used by the AMTA to score the action plan. Justification notes. Provide an explanation as to how you awarded your points in the justification notes section for each objective. Please take a minute to review the example that we have attached. Action plan submission. Once all of your milestones have been achieved and deliverables are ready to submit, you will also ensure to include an executive summary, your company profile, and an organizational chart. Similar to what is required in an audit, your executive summary should outline overall results of the action plan, listing both the strengths and recommendations. This will need to be dated and signed off by the person preparing the action plan submission. Auditor participation. Action plans will count towards auditor certification maintenance requirements. A description of how the auditor participated in the action will need to be filled out and signed. Action plan submissions must be well organized and submitted electronically to audits@amta.ca. Quality assurance. The AMTA reviewer will review the supplied documentation to ensure they provide sufficient evidence of the completion of the milestones, request further clarification and/or additional supporting documentation if required. All documentation must be dated prior to December 31st. Please note that this is only for 2020 action plans. January 31st is the deadline for the company to supply any additional requested information by the QA reviewer. Action plan score, which is completed by the AMTA. Full points are awarded to the completed objectives. This will be based on a review of the deliverables submitted. Partial points may be awarded based on the relative completeness of that deliverable. As this is a maintenance option, there's a 60% minimum score required to pass the action plan and maintain current core certification. If you have any questions about any of the information we have gone over in this presentation, please reach out to the COR department via the channel in Teams, email, or by phone.